And for too long, we've put one-size-fits-all mandates at the federal level that have constrained local choices. So what we're doing is we're restoring that flexibility back to states.
The federal government is making changes to how childcare is funded in this country. You just heard from Alex Adams, who is the director of Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. He's now part of President Trump's administration. Justin Core sat down with him yesterday. Justin, what's the main point of all of this?
Well, he mentioned it right there off the top. They want to let the states make more of these decisions. Alex Adams, the Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Children and Families, full title, was part of a big rollout of a child care reform package a few weeks ago in the White House. The feds spend billions of dollars on childcare every year, actually, mostly by giving grants to states who then award those grants. Adams says these reforms are about giving more flexibility to states with how they award those grants and to whom. He also says it puts parents more in charge of who can be considered a child care provider for them. But in doing all that, it also rolls back things like wage and benefit requirements for Head Start. It could also make things harder on providers by eliminating more predictable income for them, by not requiring an enrollment versus an attendance-based funding model. So like a bad flu season could knock out a whole daycare. Here's what Adams said about all that.
This really goes to state flexibility. So under the last administration, the Biden administration had proposed rules that would have mandated states do certain things. They would have mandated that states pay based on enrollment. They mandated states have some contract slots versus giving parents vouchers. And what we did is we cleaned the slate and said, those are state choices. It might make sense for some states. It might not make sense for other states, but what that's doing is putting a state like Idaho back in the driver's seat to make the decision that works best for them.
This reform package also encourages, but again does not require, states spend more of a certain grant called Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF money, on child care. They can spend up to 30% of that on child care. Very few states do that. And a lot of those states are actually sitting on large unused piles of that money.
I think collectively across the U.S. there's about $11 billion in TANF balances that states have not used. I think here in Idaho it's about $30 million. Certainly sitting on some of it makes sense because the most common use for TANF that people are familiar with is cash assistance. In recessions, it makes sense to have a little bit in reserve just to have that ready if economic conditions worsen. However, there's an argument that states are sitting on probably too much reserves, and a lot of that could be deployed to child care today.
But will it? Again, they're encouraging but not requiring that. It's up to Idaho. We'll keep an eye on it, Hunter.
Do we know when they might do something on that? I know it's kind of a tough question.
Not tonight.
Yeah, you know what? You're
They're
right.
all
People
busy
are pretty
tonight.
busy tonight with elections. That's a fair answer. Who knows, really? All right, Justin, thank you.